Red dots on pistols are not just a passing fad. They are here to stay, which means there is one more accessory that you're probably going to want to purchase for your pistol. A lot of the more high-end options are going to be $400, $500, even $600. Even the more low-tier budget options like Holosun are going to come in right around $250 or $300. And in this economy, a lot of people are trying to save as much money as possible, but still get good bang for their buck. So in this video, I'm going to be testing out one of the cheapest optics that I have found that actually works pretty well. Today we're going to be reviewing the Cyelee Wolf 2. Hello everyone, welcome back to Purposeful Armament, and today we are going to be doing our full review of the Cyelee Wolf 2. Now, I have had this optic for a couple of months now. I've put plenty of rounds through it, so I feel very confident in giving my opinions on how this optic performs. And believe it or not, it is not quite as bad as you might think. So I'm going to keep this intro nice and short so that we can get straight into the content. Let's talk about what we're going to look at in this video. We are going to cover the specs that Cyelee has claimed. We're then going to look at the fit and finish, the controls, the glass quality, the durability. We'll talk about how it performs on a rifle. We'll also talk about some of the downsides to this optic. And finally, I will give my opinion on what role this optic actually will fill. So a quick disclaimer, Cyelee did send us this optic for testing. They did not pay us for a positive review or anything like that. So these are my actual 100% legitimate opinions. They just simply sent us this optic for testing. They also gave us a coupon code that you guys can use if you want 15% off. Again, coupon code is right here. I'll also put it in the description below. So if you guys are interested in purchasing this optic after this review, you can do so by following our link in the description and also use that code so that you can get 15% off your order. Now, I talked a little bit about the specs in the first impressions video, but I want to go back through them now that I've had much more time behind the optic. The shake awake feature. This is an absolutely excellent feature I like on all of my red dots, and the Cyelee is no different. It does have a shake awake feature, which means after about 5 minutes of inactivity, the red dot sight will turn itself off and will only come back on whenever it detects some sort of motion. This really helps prevent wasted battery life, because if you forget to turn off your optic, it's no big deal, the optic will turn itself off. Next is the astigmatism relief. Now, whenever I first heard this, I thought it was just going to be some sort of marketing gimmick, but actually the astigmatism relief works really, really well. I do have an astigmatism, so even on something like my Holosun or my aim point or anything like that, the red dot will look kind of blown out, kind of like a star almost. On the Cyelee Wolf 2, that is not a problem at all. They have an astigmatism relief, which means that the reticle is going to be crystal clear even if you have an astigmatism. The astigmatism relief is pretty awesome. I wish it was on every single red dot because it really helps a lot. Waterproof. Now, Cyelee does boast that this has an IPX7 rating. I didn't even know that was a thing until I started looking into the Cyelee a little bit more, but it is a thing and it is rated for a certain meters underwater. Now, from what I can tell, it's pretty much just going to be rain and splash proof, as well as some light water work, I guess. I wouldn't expect to throw this into the bottom of a lake and pull it up and it still be working, but it will be able to withstand, rain, water, that sort of thing. Battery life. Cyelee claims 50,000 hours of battery life. Now, I don't really know of a good way to test this. I'm not going to just sit around and count how many hours it's been while it's been on. But what I can say is that over the past 2 months of constantly carrying it, so the optic is going to always be on while it's strapped to me, and also shooting a fair number of rounds through it, I've not seen any issue with the battery life whatsoever. I've not changed the battery. I'm still using the same one they sent from the factory. Parallax free. Now, even some high-end red dots actually have an issue with parallax, but the Cyelee seems to be 100% parallax free. Well, 95% parallax free, to be honest. You do see a little bit of parallax at the very edges of the optic, but it's not something that's going to be detrimental to your shooting experience whatsoever. As long as you're getting the reticle mostly in the actual window, you're not going to have any problem with parallax. Fit and finish. The Cyelee Wolf 2 is crafted from aluminum, meaning that it is going to be more durable than, say, a plastic bodied red dot, but it is still going to be quite light. It has so far survived typical range use with some added adversity, smacking it off of a bench, off of the ground, poles, things like that. There's been no issues with the fitment and really no damage to the finish, hardly at all. The optic itself is slightly glossy on the metal, but it's nothing that's going to be really overbearing or look goofy in any way. Now, something that does happen on a lot of these really cheaper red dots is the quality control isn't exactly great. So you'll have things that are kind of out of place. Maybe the buttons are kind of lopsided. Maybe the battery compartment doesn't fully seal all the way down. Also, sometimes glass placement inside of the optic can be kind of jank on these cheaper optics. And on the Cyelee Wolf 2, doesn't really seem to be an issue at all. Everything seems very well fit. The controls on the Wolf 2 are very basic. Like most red dots, you have 2 illumination controls as well as 2 zeroing turrets and then your battery compartment. The zeroing turrets do require a tool, although you can probably use a empty case if you have that available, which you should because you're shooting, right? So that would make sense. The tool is very small and kind of hard to keep track of, but other than that, the controls are totally fine. You do have the option to turn this optic off manually if you so choose, but with the shake awake feature, I don't really see that being a big deal. Glass quality. Now, again, even on higher end optics, this can be an issue. Typically with red dots, you will see a blue tint, sometimes even on these very cheap optics and even on higher end optics. But the Cyelee Wolf 2 has very, very little to no discoloration whatsoever. There might be a slight blue tint, but it's almost completely unnoticeable whenever you're actually using the optic. Other than that, obviously there's no magnification or fisheye effect or any weird side effect of poor glass quality. So I would say that this glass is pretty freaking good for a red dot. Durability. Now, honestly, at this price point, I was not expecting a whole lot. I was very much surprised by the Wolf's 2 performance. Now, we didn't do a full torture test. That's going to come up in our next video we make on the Cyelee. But so far, it has survived plenty of rounds. It survived constant range use, and it has survived a little bit of added adversity. Like I mentioned before in fit and finish, there have been some drops from shoulder height, 5 times actually, on an MDR directly onto the optic, and it has held up perfectly fine. No damage to it at all, no zero shift at all. I've smacked it off of benches, poles, and stuff like that, as well as just carried it for 2 months. And the optic has held up through all of that abuse. It's been through rain, water, it's been through night, it's been totally fine. And the most important part is it maintained its zero through all of that. Now, for the round count, I am only at 1,400 to 1,500 rounds of 9mm and about 300 rounds of 223, so it's not insane numbers, but it has survived for what I think the majority of people would actually shoot through this optic. And at the very least, we can see that unlike some other optics, it's not getting torn apart by recoil from a 9mm handgun or from a 223 rifle. I do want to quickly talk about its performance on a rifle. Now, Cyelee did say that this was a pistol red dot, but I did run it canted on my MDRX. Yes, it looks a little bit jank. I was trying to go as cheap as I could just to test. And other than that, it's been handling the recoil of the 223 5.56 round phenomenally. Not seeing any issues thus far. So I've been talking a lot of good about this optic. I've been giving it its flowers, but what are some of the downsides? For starters, I think the reticle option kind of sucks, and here's why. The reticle is a 3 MOA dot with a 64 or 65 MOA circle. Now, that is great for shooting up close, being very fast, but once you start to push yourself back a little bit, like say even 40 yards, that large reticle starts to really cover up a lot of your target. I will sometimes take my pistol out to 100 yards, and at that distance, it is very hard to get precise shots with the red dot. Now, pair this reticle and how crisp it is with that astigmatism relief, and put it into a red dot that has just a single dot, that would be absolute chef's kiss. It would be truly awesome. And if you put the Wolf 2 on your rifle as a sort of canted backup sight, you will start to notice that, especially as you get out to, 100, 150, 200 even, for rifle ranges, you're going to start to notice that your target is very much occluded by that reticle. Now, the controls are also a little janky. Now, I like the controls. They're very simple and easy to use, but sometimes the illumination controls won't make a very positive click whenever you actually press them. So it's kind of hard to tell if you actually turn the illumination up or down, because you can't really feel the click very well. Same thing with the turrets. Occasionally as you're going through the clicks, you will hit one that's really mushy and just feels kind of gross, and it's kind of hard to tell if you actually got a positive click or not. Now, again, both of these things happen pretty infrequently, but frequently still enough that I thought I should mention it. Another downside is the brightness. Now, I am comparing this to a Holosun, which is only slightly more expensive by about $100 or so. And the Holosun can get way, way brighter. It has like another 3 or 4 brightness settings. Now, the Cyelee Wolf 2 does have 10 brightness settings, 2 for night vision and 8 for daylight. Now, I didn't test the night vision, but I can probably guess it's not going to be super great under nods. But I can tell you that this optic is at least daylight bright. A lot of the clips you're seeing are in direct sunlight, and the optic is very easy to use. I can still pick up the reticle easily enough. It's not really a huge issue, but it still just doesn't get quite as bright as the Holosun. And really, that's about it in terms of cons. I mean, this optic was actually very surprising to me. There's not a lot of downside that I can give. I can say now that I am 100% behind the fact that this could survive, long term. And I think that for the majority of people, even if you're doing concealed carry, this is going to be a perfect optic for you. Now, this is all well and good, but what role does this optic actually play? And I think that there are 2 big roles that this optic can fit into. Number 1, if you have a gun and it's a range toy, meaning that you're not going for that gun if shit hits the fan, you're just taking it to the range to have a good time, the Wolf 2 works perfectly fine for that. Like I said, and like I tested, this thing will survive standard range use with a little bit of added drops, nicks, bumps, things of that nature, and it's going to hold 0. It's not just going to fall apart on you, and it can survive a pretty decent round count. Now, the second role I think that this optic fills is probably what most people are going to freak out about. I think that the Cyelee Wolf 2 would be a fine candidate for a CCW red dot sight, and I'll tell you why. The thing is durable, no matter what way you slice it. I have put plenty of rounds through it, almost 2,000 rounds through it in a short amount of time, and it has held up for all of that. I have bumped it off of stuff, I've banged it into stuff, I've dropped it from shoulder height, and it has survived all of that, while most importantly, staying zeroed. That is the most important part. You want to make sure that if you have to pull that gun out of the holster, that it is zeroed and ready to go. And the Wolf 2 will do that. And I think it has survived even more than what the average Joe is going to come across during CCW. Most people will probably hit their pistol off of something, whether it's their car, or maybe it's, a cart at the grocery store, whatever it is. Most people will just have some small bangs, some drops maybe. And as long as this optic is surviving all of that, I think it'd be fine for CCW use. Now, I know a lot of people will say, put 5,000, put 10,000 rounds through it, drop it off of the Empire State Building and see if it breaks. And yeah, of course, I could push this optic to its breaking point, which, by the way, we are going to do. But that still doesn't take away from the fact that it works and will survive what the majority of people are going to be doing to it. I mean, let's be honest, guys. You're not dropping this out of a helicopter while you're fast roping, okay? You're smacking it into a cart at Walmart, all right? So again, if you want to pick this optic up, you can click the link down in the description below and use our coupon code for 15% off. Again, I will also put that coupon code down in the description as well. Also, let me know in the comments if you have one of these optics and what your opinion on it is. Remember, I'm just one guy with one red dot with one gun doing some tests. I want to know what you guys think and what you guys have experienced. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will see you in the next one, and remember, as always, stay armed.